Good evening and welcome to the Taco Society Presents. It's a little bit lonely here. We're missing a couple people.
We are, unfortunately.
Yeah, what happened to Guard?
I'm actually not quite sure. I think it has something to do with work or related, isn't it?
Yeah, I if I recall correctly, he's got a new job.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
and he's going for an orientation. I think he's doing a teaching job.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
right here, I think at a college.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and he's going for orientation tonight. Bad timing on his part.
Yes.
And then Sydney's absence is a little more serious.
Yeah, she has some personal things that she has to get settled related with family members and
A
such.
family member that's ill, and we wish Sydney all the luck, and we miss them both, and hopefully they can come back and join us next month.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what's new with you? This is Phil Perron, by the way.
Oh, yes, and it is Tony Tremblay, also known as TT Zuma.
Yeah.
And when you ask me what is new, do you mean just in general, or?
Well, I know your wife's about to have a baby any day now.
Yes. The day after Thanksgiving is, in theory, the due date. However, you never know. Right?
But your phone is on just in case.
It is. It is. That's right. Yes.
And that's your second child?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
And
Yep.
you have a little girl, Colette?
Yep, Colette, and this will be another girl.
Another girl, you know.
Yes, we do.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Other than that, what's new?
In writing, generally?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, as folks know, Taco Society, we discuss writing generally, and specifically genre writing. And so there's a couple of things that have gone on recently.
Let's hear it.
Well, first off, the new anthology that my short story is going to be in, all that information is now officially been released by the editor, and I can then share it. It comes out in 2016, date to be determined. The book is called Cadence in Decay. It's edited by Ty Schwamberger, who you know very well.
Yeah, the author of Dining, which is a classic, I guess, and splatterpunk and horror.
Yep, that's right. And my tale, well, actually, let me explain what the anthology is. It's basically an anthology that uses technology, specifically communication technology, related into a horror, I guess, way.
Mm-hmm.
And so my tale is called The Everyday Struggles of Being, and my tale is generally more quiet, I believe, than most of the other tales that will be in this book, because the cover shows actually a zombie and a cell phone, and my tale is
it reminds me of Cell by Stephen King.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the vibe of the cover shows. But my tale is more of a quiet tale where a lonely winter night, a stranger calls a man, and he decides to meet this individual.
I read that. You showed that to me. Yeah, that was a good story.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yes. And so he leaves his wife in bed, and he meets the man at the front door, or the individual at the front door.
Don't spoil it now.
And it's just basically a conversation between this stranger and the elderly folk. So.
Who else is in this book?
There's actually a lot of fairly big names. Some actually well known throughout, any horror fan that reads.
Sure.
Some of them in no particular order. Gary Bronbeck.
Excellent.
Yeah. He's a fantastic guy. Never mind. I met him once, and I was impressed with him as a person. Never mind.
I've met him, and I've known him for years. He's a great guy. And just as an aside, I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute. Christopher Golan's vampire anthology, Seize the Night.
Oh yeah.
Gary Bronbeck has a story in there called Paper Cuts, and it is one of the most interesting and enjoyable vampire stories I have ever read in my life. Gary's a pro. I mean, he really knows how to write a story, and to put little twists in it and little things in it that you don't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has a number of novels out, never mind dozens of short stories.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Other folks that are of note, some famous and some that you actually know. Ramsey Campbell.
Everybody knows Ramsey.
Absolutely. One
English
of the
writer.
greatest English writers of the past 50 years, probably.
Modern horror.
Never mind,
Yeah.
in all genres, never mind
Yeah.
horror, right? Weston Oshsky.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, James A. Moore, who we actually interviewed.
He was the last episode.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you have some information about him when we
Yep,
get
we'll
to
talk
your-
about him in a minute.
Yep, Keith Minion.
Love Keith.
Yeah,
Good friend,
yeah.
and we actually interviewed Keith one of our first series. Not interviewed him, I'm sorry. We highlighted him in one of our first favorites show.
Yep. That was I think the very first favorite show that we did.
Great guy,
Matter of fact.
great author, great illustrator, just a wonderful man.
Yep. Maurice Broadus.
Yeah, great, yeah.
Yep.
Mocon.
Yep. Thomas Erb.
Oh, Tom. Everybody knows Tom. Great
Yep,
guy.
he's a fantastic guy.
Great guy.
Jeff Strand.
Funny guy, Benjamin's Parasite. A lot of great novels from him. A Good Day for Voodoo. There's so many I can go on
Sure.
on and on. Great author.
He may be, some of these people may be people that we should focus on in upcoming episodes.
Absolutely.
Because they're fantastic writers. Jeff Strand, I just mentioned, and Tim Wagner.
Tim wrote one of my favorite horror stories of all time called Pandora Drive.
Nice.
And he continues to write. I just read another book by him, and I want to say Like a River, but I could have that title wrong. But another wonderful guy, and I know him back from the leisure days with Like Death and Pandora Drive.
Yeah, and there's a number of other stories as well from other authors, not so famous, but
Yep.
supposedly very very good.
Good,
stories.
great. I look forward to
That's what Ty was mentioning to me. Yeah.
I'll be buying it.
Yep. That's cool. Thank you. Also, I am. I publish stuff too for
Yes,
Great
great
Old
old
Ones
ones,
Publishing, and a couple of books recently just came out of significance. One is called The Gambling Bug. It's a full-length novel, about 350 pages, by an author out of Greater Lowell area of Massachusetts. Man's named Dan Graffio.
I don't know him.
Yeah, he isn't as known throughout I guess our group of people that we know, because he's not really a member of the New England Horror Writers Association. However, he is constantly at the Rock and Shock horror conference
Yep.
and convention down in Worcester, which is every October, and he always has a table there.
Good. Yeah.
So he has a fairly good fan base. And prior to this novel, YA horror.
Oh, okay.
But this one is not.
His first
YA.
adult. Yep.
Yeah, first adult. Yep. And then also Halloween House of Horrors. Perfect time for the year.
Mark
'cause
Gunnels.
Mark
Yeah.
Allen Gunnels.
Yeah.
Out of North Carolina.
Nice guy, great guy.
Fantastic
Yeah.
guy. Yeah. He had a bunch of short stories. We put them all together with a wraparound tale that puts them, combines them, links them
Good.
up in a way.
Good.
Yeah. So both of those are out. You can find them at any online book retailer.
Good. Yeah.
In either trade paperback or ebook.
Mark's a good writer. I've read a few of his
Oh,
novels
yeah,
also.
he's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And his stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've reviewed a few for Horror World.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I actually interviewed him way back when his book, The Quarry, came
Yes.
out by Evil Justice Press.
Yep, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually the first person that interviewed him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on my podcast. that
Nice
I do.
guy.
Yeah, he had never done an interview prior to that. It was
Ah.
like 4 years ago now.
Ah.
Crazy. Time flies. But yeah, that's the main stuff I got going. What about yourself, Tony? Any TT Zuma stuff?
Well, I can. Yeah, there's a few things. I'll go into a couple of book launchings I went to. Both were for Chris Golden and his new novel Dead Ringers, which we talked with him
Yep.
last episode as well
Great
as.
guy, fantastic.
Oh
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And James A. Moore,
fantastic.
City of Wonders.
Yeah.
They had-
who was just in the book I just mentioned?
He was, yeah. Jim's a great short story writer.
Sure.
Christopher Golden is funny. I just related a story today about I was somewhere last night, and I have an emergency book in the car, so I was stuck somewhere last night. And my emergency book in the car was, now I'm going to forget because I'm on the spot.
Of course.
Tell my story, something to the sorrows. I'll remember it before the end of the show. But anyways, it was a great book, and the stories were there, and they were fantastic.
Oh, is it an anthology?
It's an anthology. Well, it's a collection. It's not an
collection.
anthology. Tell My Sorrows to the Stones. Okay, I knew it would come to me.
So this is all Golden's tales.
All of his tales, and I'd never really read a lot of his tales in one setting. I've read one here and one there,
Oh, yes.
and they are fantastic. I can't believe how good those stories were.
Right.
And I enjoyed them all, and I still got half the book to go through.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, I went to the first launching was at the Andover Book Store in Andover, Mass.
Oh, yeah. Second
and
oldest bookstore in the nation, I think.
you wouldn't believe that place. It's gorgeous. And they've outside the bookstore, there's a gas-fired fireplace. So
I have seen that.
yeah, you can sit, you can read, you can nap.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It's really cozy. It's really nice. And I can see why people would go to Andover Book Store, buy a book, go out and sit by the fireplace, have a cup of coffee or whatever you want to drink.
Of course.
Sit back and enjoy the book.
Yep.
So it was a great launch, and some of the people there were Jack Haringa, Ralph Carson, Scott Goswald, Paul McNamee, Matt Bechtel, Catherine Grant, Amber Fallon, Barry, I want to say Dejaru, but I screw his name up every time. I'm terrible with names, I'm sorry. And Laura Hickman, and there were many others there. And the other one was at Pandemonium Books, and that was in Cambridge, Mass. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun
and
also.
that was for who? Was
Same thing, it was for
for
both. It was part two of their book
so
launch.
they did a double
Yeah,
launch.
they did.
Very good.
And they had just as many people at that one. Different people. Kevin Lewis was there, Douglas Wynn, Chris Irvin, good friend, Eric Nunnally, great guy, Gam Piscatelli. Again, my names, I'm sorry, but Gam is a great woman. I love Gam to death.
Yeah, she's great. I like Kevin Lewis too. He's great. A lot of good people you name in there.
Oh, well, Scott Gosward was there again, and I love Scott. I mean, I can't think of a better brother in horror than Scott. He's just always there for you. And
fantastic guy.
and he handles.
Doesn't say a bad thing about anybody. His writing's great.
His writing. Well, he does a lot of.
He does so much stuff for the New England.
That's what I was
going
to say.
Yeah.
He's really great.
Oh my God, he's a fantastic guy.
Izzy Lee was there. Bracken McLeod was there. Larissa Glasser, and there were a lot of others. Some of the people I don't know, but it was a real fun time. Both of them were a lot of fun, and I took pictures. And if you want to see those pictures, you can look at my Facebook site and go into my albums, and they're there. Yeah, and I did want to mention that T.M. Wright passed. T.M. Wright is a classic horror author. You may know him from A Manhattan Ghost Story, Strange Seed. He's got a couple books that I absolutely love. One of them was Little Boy Lost from Uninvited Books. That's Robert Dunbar's imprint, and a book called Blue Canoe that Tom Piccarelli recommended to me, and I read it and I loved it. It's odd as hell. People might not understand it, but I think I got it. And it was my review of Blue Canoe that got me speaking with T.M. Wright. We corresponded back and forth for a while after that. Great guy, and he's missed, and he was loved by so many people.
If I could interject, there's two other folks in horror that passed, though not authors, they were in film, and that would be Gunnar Hansen of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as well as Senator Fred Thompson, who was played the police chief, I think, or sheriff in the movie Sinister.
Oh, okay.
So folks who enjoy horror, we lost a couple of good actors. So.
Yeah. Other than that, from personal news, I did submit my first book.
Oh.
And I've learned the importance of editing. I knew it all along, but basically, when you write a book, you write, you rewrite, you rewrite. And this went through a couple of rewrites by me, went through my writers group, came back, I rewrote a lot of it, and I got a mentor. I mean, somebody I consider a very accomplished horror author, and a lot of other people do too. Asked if he could see it. He took a look at it, and he made some cuts.
And who was that, or can you say that?
Well, I won't say it now, because if it doesn't go, I don't want to.
Sure.
I'll be embarrassed.
You can tell me offline.
I'll tell you offline. But I did some more cuts and some more rewrites, and I submitted it. So my fingers are crossed that the publisher has it, and we'll see what happens. But it's funny, as soon as I submitted it, I went back and looked at it, and what do I find? A typo. You know, I mean, that happens all the time.
Well, to make you feel good, George Harrison, for the song I, Me, Mine, and on Abbey Road, he submitted that numerous times, and he spliced it a certain way, and even to this, or I should say to the day that he passed, he used to say that every time he listened to that song, he could hear that splice, and it always bothered him. So you're always going to find something, no matter what. At one point, you have to stop.
Yeah, you do, and that's why editors are there to help you along and to find those things that the writers missed.
Indeed.
And that's going, and as just to be on just stay on the writing theme for a bit. I've learned a lot of things, and not that I didn't know them, but they're reinforced. Adverbs, get rid of adverbs whenever you can, and I'm learning. Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest things I had to learn. Because it's so easy to want to write ly words, quickly. There's just so many.
Why is that? Why do they?
Basically, you don't need them because they don't reinforce anything. Saying something, maybe I have an example here. Saying a word like "really," that's really good. That doesn't add anything. What does it really mean? Really mean? What does it mean when you can say, if you can take the word out and have the same meaning, you really don't need to.
Right.
I just did it again. It's a filler word. And the same thing with just. Mark Twain said, substitute a swear word for any time you want to put in one of those ly words, and the editor will see the swear word, take it out, and that's the same thing with ly word. He's doing you a favor. So just go in your Word program, take out all the ly words, put in damn or something nastier. The editor will see it, he'll cross it out, and you'll have a pretty good manuscript after that. So that's one of the things I've learned. And basically passive voice. I have a hard time with passive voice also, and I'm trying really hard there it is again. I'm trying hard to change that. And I think I've done well. And with the guidance of my writers group, guidance of my mentor, and if the book does get sold, I'll be more than happy to let everybody know who it was. It'll prove that these guys really did know their stuff, and that I really did learn.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good luck to that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll hear back soon. And sometimes it takes a while, as we know. But
I've got my fingers crossed. And I just want to go over a few new releases. Just take a minute. I wanted to see if I could just horror releases, yeah.
Or have come out.
Well, yes, they have come out, or will be out any minute if they're not by now. Safe Inside the Violence by Chris Irvin. Soulmates by John Little. The Bazaar of Bad Dreams by Stephen King. You've heard of him.
Of course.
Okay. Dead Ringers by Christopher Golden. City of Wonders by James A. Moore. The Incurables by John Bassoff. Great author. I really love everything he's come out with. And The Streets by Rob Dunbar. And I finished The Streets about a week or so ago, and I loved it. It's part of his Pine Barren trilogy. It's the end of the trilogy, and it's really a fantastic book.
And is that one moment, sorry.
Technical difficulties here.
Technical difficulties.
You want to go up a little bit?
All right, here we go.
Yep.
And what is the Pine Barren? Is it similar to like Ghosts or something?
Yeah, the Jersey Devil.
Right.
You've heard of the Jersey Devil, yeah.
That's right. That's the area that
the Pine Barrens.
It's supposed to be, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give away too much because I think if people pick up The Pines, which is the first book in the series, they'll absolutely love it. Love it, and then go to The Shore, and then it finishes off with The Streets.
And this is by Mr. Dunbar.
Rob Dunbar. Yep.
Nice.
And The Streets kind of brings in all these characters from the first two that were a little bit minor characters and fleshes them out, and it's a joy to read. It's a lot of fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, worth it then. Okay.
Yep. We're going to go back to the favorites theme here, and we each picked an author. You want to go first, and then I'll go?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do.
Sure. Why don't you talk about the author you picked for your favorite this episode, and you're going to read a page?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great, good.
All right, the author that I decided to choose tonight to let folks know somewhat more about, if they haven't heard of the author yet, is a man named Eric S. Brown. He's a writer
Bigfoot.
Well, that's the thing. He's actually from North Carolina. He was originally known mostly as for zombie books, but then he switched over to cryptozoology, which specifically means monsters like the Jersey Devil, for that matter, or Bigfoot or whatnot. And he came out with a number of books called The Bigfoot Wars. Mm-hmm. And I'm using my phone here, technology, so rather than print out save trees, right? I have some information about him, including his bio and whatnot. And the first is he's actually had 3 films made out of his books. 2 have already been released, and 1 is in post-production now. The first is called Bigfoot Wars, based on his first book of the Bigfoot Wars series. Werewolf Massacre at Hell's Gate, based on The Witch of Devil's Wood. And then he has Cult of the Shadow People, which is now in post-production, and technically should remain the same, the title, but you never know. So he has obviously some credibility with being actually to be able to say that he has had his books
turned into
optioned
movies,
and actually turned into movies,
Good.
which is quite impressive.
Yeah.
Some of his newer books, I got some titles here. Megalodons, which is actually cryptozoology, so it's monsters like the Loch Ness Monster, things like that. And then Kaiju Spawn, so giant monsters and attacking cities and whatnot. So some of his newest books, so you can find those pretty much at any online book retailer. His bio includes this. Eric S. Brown is the author of numerous series, including the cult classic Bigfoot War series, the Kaiju Apocalypse series, the Crypto Squad series, and the Homeworld series. Some of his standalone titles include Megalodon, Kaiju Spawn, Dawn of Kaiju, Cult of the Shadow People, The Weaponer, and Sasquatch Lake, to name only a few. His short fiction has been published hundreds of times in the small press and beyond, including markets like Baen Books, Onward Drake Antho, the Grantville Gazette, and the Snafu Anthology series. He lives in North Carolina with his wife and 2 children, where he continues to write tales of blazing guns, hungry corpses, and the monsters that lurk in the woods. If you pick up one of his books to play up, that's not from you guys, go with The Weaponer. That's the book.
The Weaponer?
Is the one
Okay.
he recommends. And it's got a great introduction by Joe McKinney.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
great.
so that must tell you something. Joe McKinney is arguably one of the best zombie writers.
He is a great writer
right
all
now.
around,
I mean, he's just fantastic. And so this book here, The Weaponer, is a zombie book. So let me read a couple of pages from The Weaponer. It's a book that is on my agenda. I have not read it yet, but I specifically contacted him on Facebook, because you can find him on Facebook. He's pretty active, and I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to read, because I was going to focus on him, and he was quite honored to hear that we were going to do it. So he recommended me The Weaponer and sent me a couple of pages to read.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is from the prologue. Long ago, in the last days of the fall of man, Colonel Hans Verne stood atop the wall watching as the final convoy of buses and supply trucks drove towards the gates. Verne knew his own supply of mortars, grenades, and the like was nearly exhausted. The dead were pressed hundreds deep against the wall, and unless he could come up with a plan to disperse the ones at the gates, opening it would be suicide. Verne rubbed his hands together to warm them in the chill of the morning air. The fate of the people in the approaching convoy rested solely with his and his men. Those civilians were counting on him to save their lives and get them inside. The wall stood 30 feet tall, and at many places along its height, Verne's men were occupied with the fight to hold back the dead so that its construction could be completed. Verne was reluctant to expand any of his dwindling firepower. There were already over 1,000 civilians inside and sheltered at the makeshift town, which was being set up many miles from where he stood. There would be no more supplies coming. The world outside the wall was gone. He wasn't up to making a call like this one that lay before him. All the generals were dead and rotting through, and like it or not, he was the highest ranking officer left in the United States military. His men had one advantage over the civilians. Each of them were injected with a vaccine that allowed them to stand against the dead without the worry of a simple bite or scratch turning them into one of the monsters below. The vaccine was costly and difficult to produce, and thus its supply had been limited. There was not enough to inoculate the civilians as well. Thus, it was against orders for him to draft help from the town to defend the wall. If one of them became infected and returned undetected, all could be lost. The advantage given to his men by the vaccine was a true blessing, but it didn't make his men invincible. The dead could still rip them to pieces as easy as they could anyone else. Fern shook his head and knew he didn't have the manpower or firepower left to open the gates this time if he wanted to preserve what was already being built inside the wall's perimeter. He reached and tapped on the comlink that he wore and said, "Keep the gates closed. If they try to ram their way in, take them out hard and fast."
This has been released, or this is going to be released?
That is a very good question. It is something that I asked that I didn't know about, or me having read, because I've talked to him before and I've told him what I've read. And I said, give me something that I haven't read yet.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know if it has been released yet.
Uh-huh.
And my guess it has, because he wouldn't have told me about Joe McKinney having written the foreword already. So,
but it could be an exclusive.
yeah, well, it's possible. But my guess is that it is available on the
Great, look it up.
regular sites.
Good,
So, yeah.
good. My turn?
Sure, yeah.
Great.
You have someone you want to
Oh,
discuss?
I do, yeah. I want to discuss a woman by the name of Sandy Deluca. Sandy is a novelist, a poet, and a painter who was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and she's lived in New England all her life. Sandy was a finalist for the Bram Stoker for Poetry Award in the year 2000. That was for Burial Plot in Sagittarius. And again in 2013 for Dangerous Dreams, and that was with her collaborator Marge Simpson. Her illustrations accompany notable poetry collections, and she has painted cover art for popular genre magazines. Sandy's original paintings have been exhibited in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, in New York's Hudson Valley. Sandy is also the owner of Midnight Town Media, where you can find many of her printed works and paintings. And I've got just a few of her books here. You're going to see a few pictures after the show ends to get a better shot of them, but I'll just hold them up for the camera now. This is called Darkness Conjured. This is one I'll be reading from called Descent. Manhattan Grimoire. I hope I said that right. And I've also got a book of her art called Apparitions, and it's 3 Decades of Strange Art is the subtitle. And there's some great drawings in here. In fact, I often take this off the shelf and sit and stare at the pages. They're haunting and often erotic. So if that kind of art appeals to you, pick up Apparitions, 3 Decades of Strange Art. Excuse me. I wrote a review on one of Sandy's books. I'm going to read a little bit from the review and go over some of these books that I just spoke about. Sandy is one of my favorite authors. Not since Charlie Jacob, if you know who Charlie Jacob is. As a female author, managed to give me genuine chills, and Sandy does. Having said that, I don't want to mislead anyone. Sandy transcends the label of female horror writer. She can hold her own with anybody. She's that good. Her strength does lay in the fact that her lead characters are almost always female, giving her readers a unique view of the horrors that are particular to women. Whether it was her character Julia struggling with her sense of helplessness in Descent, or Angie trying to overcome cancer and madness in her novel From Ashes, or Meg struggling with the issues of childbirth and abortion in her novel Darkness Conjured, DeLuca's characters manage to address these and other issues in ways that are stark and unflinching. Almost always it's a male that is either the originator of the moral and physical distress she saddles her characters with, or their enablers. And as Sandy makes clear, if women want to dance with the devil, it's the devil that usually calls the tune. I'm going to highlight a few of her novels, and I'm going to go into a reading for you. These are the ones I'd recommend you pick up from Sandy. Descent, which we'll get into. I'll save that for last because I'm going to read from it. But Manhattan Grimoire is the plot is a crippling blizzard, grisly discoveries in an old church in Harlem. A small apartment building cut off by the mounting storm, its tenants trapped with a vicious killer that may or may not be human. And in an unholy manuscript stolen from a dead sorcerer, that could very well hold the secrets to opening the gates of hell. I'm not sure, but I think that was her first novel, and it's a good one. Messages from the Dead, which is probably her most famous novel. Donna's never been like other girls. She was raised by her grandmother, who held seances in her parlor, seeking messages from deceased loved ones. Years later, Donna has settled into a normal life with her husband and attends art school at Castell Community College in the evenings. It was once home to a children's hospital, and the ghosts of the restless dead still roam the darkened hallways. And now they want something from Donna, and they'll stop at nothing to get it. Reign of Blood. Darcy's life was unlike other girls. She was obsessed with the lives of killers like Charles Stackweather and Carol Fugate. She moved from town to town with her mother, a convict and murderer, leaving behind a bloody trail of death and terror. But everything changed when Darcy met Bobby. In time, she learned he was more vicious and colder than her mother. Years later, Darcy learns the startling truth about herself, her family, and the dead who haunt her. And if you're interested in her poetry and art, you can pick up Vermilion Teardrop or Apparitions, which we just spoke about. She also has 2 books co-authored with Marge Simon called The Mad Hattery and Naughty Ladies. And if you want to know more about Sandy, you can visit sandydeluca.com or log on to your favorite ebook purchasing site. I'm going to read from Descent, and I'll give you a little bit of a plot synopsis. A beautiful young painter, a woman, falls in love with a dangerously sexy man who may be in league with the devil, who may even be a devil. So begins her descent into a world of violence and horror, a world of rituals and madness and unspeakable cruelty. Can she retain her soul despite the things he does to her, the things he forces her to witness, the things he forces her to do? When you dance with the devil, can you ever make it stop? Descent is published by Uninvited Press, which is Rob Dunbar. We spoke about him earlier, his press. I'm going to read a page from Descent. It's chapter 23. My mother closes her eyes. Raindrops trickle down the windows on the far wall. You should try to sleep, I tell her. You'll be fine in a couple days. Her body relaxes, and just as I think she's finally drifting off to sleep, she slowly opens her eyes. There were a lot of girls, she says. Lots of murders, even before you got involved with them. I think about the Sunday I waited for Sammy outside the gym. I think about the girl who entered the cemetery and didn't return. Thunder crashes and my mother's frail form jumps. Her face is so white. Do you want me to call the nurse, I ask? They won't give me more pills. They only want to taunt me. With great effort, she wipes sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. You taunt me too. Why do you even bother coming? Your painting is much more important to you. Thunder rumbles again. I hear Sammy's voice somewhere far off. Hear the floor creaks as if someone's just outside the door listening to us. Were all the bodies buried? My mother asks. I'm going to call the nurse. That ain't no nurse. I can't handle this and feel myself backing away from the bed, from my mother, from all this madness. I'll come back tomorrow night. He's tricking us. He's summoning all the demons. They dance around us when we sleep. Lil and all her mumbo-jumbo, weak efforts to stop it. You're the one. You're the bitch that caused all this. Finally, thankfully, my mother drifts off to sleep. That's one example of her writing, and I've got another small one. And this is from Darkness Conjured.
And is that a novel?
Yeah, it is. This was from Delirium. It's a small little hardcover. It's a cute little book. For a book that has such evil themes and dark themes, it's a cute little book. I'm assuming this is still available. I'm not sure, but if it is, you should pick this one up too. There's something wrong here. I'm not sure what, but I'll find out. Don't be afraid. I doubt it's evil spirits who eat eyeballs, or if it's Count Dracula's coffin in the basement. My attempt at humor fails, and Florida sobs loudly. Look, it's an old house. The floors are uneven. The pipes, or any kind of vibration can set things off and make stuff fall. Flora still didn't look convinced. Now the door creaks. The knob turns. The door slowly opens. There's nowhere to run or hide in this tiny room. I hold my breath as the door opens a bit. Flora gasps, presses close to me. The door creaks again. Someone or something sighs. A shape is now evident as the door opens wider. The hall light brightens and I realize it's Marcy Long, arms dangling at her side, knife gleaming in her hand. They took my first baby. They'll take this one too, she says. She slides a finger over her knife, caressing it almost lovingly. She takes a step backwards. The light flickers and then dies. Marcy is swallowed by darkness. Damn creepy chick. What the heck was she talking about, snaps Flora. I'm not sure. Just trying to freak us out? Now we sit here in Flora's bed holding hands, shuddering each time we hear an unfamiliar sound. I'm keeping the baby. I don't have much else. I don't have anything at all but a tiny bit of cash hidden away. Not enough where I can start a new life, but I got options. Something taps at the window. I turn slowly to look. Dark streaks stain glass. Finger marks. Child laughter erupts. First one voice, then two, and then a chaos of many. Then a chorus of many. They died here. Marcy is still standing in the darkness. Is she taunting us, or is this a warning? They all died here, and so will we. So if you can pick up Sandy's work, like I said, it's very chilling. She does a great job bringing perspective from a woman in horror that you don't normally see.
Not as often as men, it seems, for some
Absolutely,
reason.
yep.
So anything by a woman of note is a treat.
It is. As I said, I love Sandy. I love her fiction, and I really, I'm not a big poet, but I do enjoy her poems, but I really love her art also.
Nice. I did look up the modern technology, Eric S. Brown's book online, and The Weaponer. The reason I haven't heard of it until he sent me the first few pages was because it was just released in October by
great.
Grand Mail Press.
Great.
So it is available.
We've got just a few minutes left. Why don't we play a little game? You can ask me a question I probably won't be able to answer, and I'll return it.
well, before we do that, I forgot to mention something because a friend of ours of the Taco Society and has mentioned to us numerous times had me as a guest on his podcast.
Great.
It's called The Quiet Room by author M.J. Preston out of Canada.
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, Mark Preston, exactly. Yeah, he's a great guy. Author and artist. His podcast is about writing, writers, books, and publishing, and it's a free-form conversation where writers talk about a myriad of subjects.
Sure.
And he's had guests like Christy Peterson Schoonover, who we've
We interviewed.
He's had the Scullys.
I heard that podcast maybe a week or two ago. Great job.
Yeah.
Love the Scullys. They're great people.
Oh, great. Yeah. And he's
Bobby and Alex.
He's had I believe he's had Kyle Rader on, who we've interviewed here.
Yeah.
So his podcast is very interesting, and he had me on episode 5 or 6, I think. It just came out 2 days ago, and we discuss numerous things in writing today.
Good.
So.
Was I mentioned in any of these?
You absolutely were.
Oh, okay. Now I'll definitely watch
it. We discussed the Taco Society a little bit again, so more promotion on his podcast. So I wanted to mention him as well for giving us that plug.
Yeah, Mark's a great guy, and I heard the podcast, and I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely listen to the next one, whether I was mentioned or not. I was just kidding. But he is a great guy, and he's a good author. I enjoyed his books. And
he's got to get you on.
Oh, jeez. Maybe he will. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I have some trivia questions related to horror, and figured we'd fill some time in. And what I've decided to do is get some 5 questions about the book Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Okay, I don't know if we'll get to all 5, but go ahead.
Yeah, but I'll just throw out a couple anyway. Here's one right here. What was not a threat to Dracula in the novel? Garlic, a mirror, the sun, or holy symbols, such as the cross.
I would say garlic.
And you would be wrong.
Oh.
Yes, garlic was one of the main things in the book, where they put it around the windowsills and such, and it was removed by one of the mothers of the character on mistake, thinking it was, why is this here?
Okay.
Actually, the sun. Dracula is
Really?
not really threatened by the
Affected by the
sun. That was made up for the movie
The movies.
Nosferatu,
Okay.
which came out a few years after, about 20 years after the novel.
I'd actually read Dracula, but it was 40 years ago, and I do not
really?
remember. I read it in college, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
but
I
don't
just
remember
read it about 2 years ago. It was the
Did you?
first
Okay.
time, yeah.
So it's still fresh in your mind.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is worthy of
A reread?
not only a reread, but worthy of the praise that it does get. It's just a fantastic novel.
The thing I remembered about that is, this has stuck with me over the 40 years, is that the novel was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it was stretched out, and then it seems like it just ended. Bam, it was done.
Yeah.
And I remember being, 40 years ago, surprised that the ending just stopped. Everything was. They finished it up, but it was just this big lead on, all this action, and then
It
bam.
was a big action sequence, and then boom, it ends. And my favorite part, or one of my favorite, actually the whole book's great, but the ending, there's a scene where everybody knows Dracula dies because but when he dies, Stoker writes about how he gets a smile on his face because he's finally able to be out of this
He's
curse.
at peace, yep.
This curse, because it was a curse that he didn't even want.
Right.
And so even though he fought to survive throughout the book, never mind these centuries, he didn't want to be a vampire either, because he was a human that just happened to be turned like anybody had, that he had turned himself. So
Let's go with another one.
okay, sure, yeah, let's do that. The Demeter, which is the boat that brings Dracula from his home country of Transylvania to England, and but what nationality was the ship? Because it wasn't an English ship. it was. So I have 4 nations I put.
Go
down
ahead,
there.
yeah.
Turkey, Serbia, Romania, or Russia.
I'd have to say Serbia.
Nope, it was Russia. It was a
Russia.
Russian ship because it came from the Black Sea, so it was around.
I'm going to be 0 for 5 here.
Oh, jeez, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. There was a prologue chapter, or a first chapter, that was actually removed from the novel, but in recent years has been re-added back. And numerous times has been published as a short story in other collections because it's still a good piece of work, even though it wasn't included with the original publication. I have 4 titles of what that first chapter that originally was missing is called.
I can't wait to ask you questions.
All right,
Go
fair
ahead.
enough. Was it Camilla, The Tomb, Dracula's Guest, or The Vampire? With
Camellia.
Nope. Camellia was actually a novella written by Le Fanu,
Okay.
and another Irish writer, as a matter of fact. And that was a vampire story too. Probably, in my opinion, almost.
That was in the back of my mind.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's.
It was
why I
actually
said it.
Dracula's Guest.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'll go again.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Embarrass me some more.
Okay. The Duborga Pass is located amongst what mountains? And this is where that big action piece happened that suddenly ended, like you said. And the 4 mountains groups that I have written here are the Caucasus, the Carpathian, the Urals, or the Alps.
The Uncanunics aren't part of this?
They are not, no.
The Urals.
Nope. It's actually the Carpathians.
All right, let's see if I can save myself.
All
Last
right,
question.
last question. Mina Harker
Yep.
married a character in the book, which was Jonathan
Jonathan,
Harker.
yeah. I knew
However-
that. Why couldn't you ask me that?
However, I know, seriously. However, the first quarter of the book, she went by her maiden name. What is it? And I have 4 names here. Stewart, James, Murray, Weatherspoon.
Weatherspoon.
Good guess, because there was a British Isles name, but nope, it was Murray. So Nina Murray.
Okay. See, you're the expert on vintage horror.
Well,
you know quite a bit
I try
about it.
anyway. Yeah.
But you have a little weakness when it comes to modern horror.
Unless it's Stephen King.
Unless it's Stephen King. So I'm going to see if I can go match you, or you can match me with the 0 for 5 here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to give you the plot of a book.
Okay.
These are all famous books. Everybody knows them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've made this very easy, okay?
Sure.
But they're very popular books in horror.
Okay.
I mean, they're classics.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to read
But
you.
they're modern classics.
Yes.
It's from 1970 on.
On. Well, they may be a little earlier,
Oh, okay.
but around.
Okay,
around.
so it could be
Yeah.
something like I Am Legend or something.
It could be.
Okay.
It could
fair
be.
enough, fair enough.
I'm going to read you the plot. You see if you can tell me the title of the book or the author.
Okay.
An ancient evil roams the blasted nightmare country, an evil as old as time. He is the man with the scarlet eye, the man of many faces, gathering under his power the forces of human greed and madness. He is seeking to destroy a child, the one called Swan.
Oh, I haven't read this book, but because you said Swan, I know exactly what it is, and it's been compared numerous times with Stephen King's The Stand.
Yep.
And that would be Swan Song by McKinnon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, see?
Yeah,
I told
and
you they were
actually,
easy.
M.J. Preston says that's one of his favorite books.
It's one of mine also. It's a
Is it?
fantastic
I heard
book.
it's such a great book. I haven't read it.
Yeah, I've actually read Swan Song 3 times.
And it's a huge book too. It's
And I've
like
only read The Stand
1,000
twice.
pages or something.
Yeah. Well, it's 900 and something if I remember.
yeah,
It's close to
right.
1,000.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another easy one.
Okay.
A masterpiece of modern Gothic literature, this book is the memorable story of 2 boys, James Nightshade and William Halloway, and the evil that grips their small Midwestern town with the arrival of a dark carnival one autumn midnight. How these 2 innocents, both age 13, save the souls of the town as well as their own.
I know this
What
one.
would?
Oh, continue. I thought you were done. Sorry.
No, I'm not. I left something out. What would you do if your secret wishes could be granted by this mysterious ringmaster?
Well, I have not read the book. However, I saw the movie with starring Jason Robards
Yes.
and Jonathan Pryce, and
Yep.
it was a fantastic movie. I loved that movie as a kid. And that was a Ray Bradbury tale,
Yep.
Something Wicked This Way Come.
You got it. See, these are easy.
So
This one's a little tougher.
Okay.
Trapped in the Mexican jungle, a group of friends stumble upon a creeping horror unlike anything they could ever imagine.
Oh, this one's a good one.
2 young couples are on a lazy Mexican vacation with sun-drenched days, drunken nights, and making friends with fellow tourists. When the brother of one of those friends disappears, they decide to venture into the jungle to look for him. What started out as a fun day trip slowly spirals into a nightmare when they find an ancient site and the terrifying presence that lurks there.
Well, I
saw the movie, you didn't read the
I've read
book.
the book.
Oh, you have?
Almost certainly. It's a fantastic book, and the movie is fantastic too. And that would be Scott Smith, and the book is The Ruins.
Boy, you're putting me to shame here. This
Sorry,
is 3 for 3 so far.
But actually, my Dark Discussions podcast, we did an episode on both the book and the movie.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. It was a great movie.
All right. Let
Yeah,
me
great
see.
book.
I've got 2 left here. Maybe I can. I mean, the last one is super
Scott
easy.
Smith
But
also wrote A Simple Plan, which
yes, he
was another
did.
damn
Great
book.
movie. I
Yeah,
didn't read the book, but I
the
saw the
movie
movie.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
By Sam Raimi, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Billy Bob Thornton was nominated for Academy Award. He did not win.
You're going to keep showing me up, aren't you? All right, here's one. The men on board of this ship have every expectation of triumph. As part of the 1845 Franklin expedition, the first steam-powered vessels ever to search for the legendary Northwest Passage. They are scientifically supported. They are as scientifically supported an enterprise that has ever set forth. But here is something out there in the frigid darkness, an unseen predator stalking their ship, a monster constantly clawing to get in. With them travels an Inuit woman who cannot speak and who may be the key to their survival or the harbinger of their deaths.
Well, I think I own this book, and I know the author, but I'm stumped on the name because I just had that book in my hand like last week because I was.
Who's the author?
I was moving, like I said, making the baby's room.
Yeah.
And I had to move books out,
Yeah.
and one of those books was this book, if I'm not mistaken. It's Dan Simmons.
Yeah.
And
You just said it.
I said the name of the book.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. What was
The
it?
Terror.
That's right.
You started to say it, and you stopped.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, and I had that book in my hand just this week. That's the funny thing.
Boy, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I made these way too easy.
I guess so. I don't know.
You're the guy that doesn't know anything about modern horror, and you're getting every one of these. Drives me crazy. And I said to myself, I got to make him easy so you have a chance at this.
Right.
All right, here's the easiest one.
Have you read it, by the way?
Oh, of course I have.
Yeah,
I've read all of
I haven't
these,
read it yet. I have it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have it, but I have not read it yet. I heard it's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's more than you'd ever think somebody could write about. Amelia Sense of Snow did the same thing, but in this case, it's ice.
Right.
There's, chapters written on ice. It's a fantastic book, and it's fascinating.
Right.
You would like it.
Okay, good, because I have it, so
Okay.
we'll have to pick it up and read it.
Last one, you ready?
Okay, sure.
Billy Halleck, good husband and loving father, is both beneficiary and victim of the American good life. He has an expensive home, a nice family, and a rewarding career as a lawyer. But he's also 50 pounds overweight and edging into heart attack country. After accidentally killing a gypsy, a curse is put on him. Now he's losing weight, a lot of weight.
I've read this one, and I got this book as a gift from my brother. It's called, it's by Richard Bachman or Stephen King, and it's called Thinner.
Yeah.
And the ending was horrifying.
You know,
in the lead character, you want him to succeed, but then he becomes like a dirtbag by the end, and then it backfires on him, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
well, the ending is it's a twist, and it's really horrific.
Indeed.
Well, thank you. I mean, the next time I do this, I am going to make it much, much harder. And don't you pick Frankenstein for the next one for me. Jeez.
No, I wouldn't do that.
That's another one I read 40 years ago, and I don't remember anything about. Well, thank you very much. It was a fun time tonight.
It sure was.
Yeah.
It was great. Good show. We had a lot to talk about. A lot of good authors. Sandy Deluca.
Yeah, remember Sandy Deluca? Pick Up Descent.
Yep.
Yeah, Uninvited Books. Rob Dunbar's imprint.
Yep.
And Eric Brown.
Eric S. Brown. Yep. His books numerous of the Bigfoot Wars, and as his new book that just came out called The Weaponer. A lot of good stuff. And
great. And you'll see pictures of some of these books at the end of the show. So if you're interested, go to your favorite online bookseller and just take a look. Hopefully you'll purchase some.
Indeed.
Yes, thank you very much, and we'll be back next month, hopefully with the whole crew.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and next month will be the December, which will be episode 17, the December show, and we're going to be talking about snow in books and fiction that has to do with...
The Terror would have been a perfect one.
It would have been, yeah.
Yes.
And maybe somebody will talk about it, but
Indeed.
I know what I'm talking about already, so.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, everybody, and I got to look at the camera. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next month.